Hello and welcome back to Behind the Brief podcast. I'm your host Shruti, and today's guest is someone who embodies clarity in every sense of the word. Joining me is Doug, Global Marketing Executive and Senior Director of Product Marketing at Digital Science, a leader who spent his career helping B2B and SaaS companies bring complex solutions to market with focus, storytelling, and strategic alignment. Doug's also the author of the upcoming book, So What, Why, and Who Cares, a framework that's become a mantra for marketers who want to turn noise into a narrative and make their work truly matter. So, in this episode, we are unpacking the real value of product marketing, how PMMs can create alignment, drive clarity, and influence outcomes across teams. So whether you are a seasoned product marketer or just trying to figure out how to move from execution to strategy, this episode is packed with insights you'll want to jot down. Welcome to my show, Doug.
Thank you. And I'm a little concerned. You said all this clarity thing. Hopefully I'll stay clear for most of this, but I appreciate the introduction. I love product marketing. I'm very passionate about it, passionate about messaging and positioning as we've discussed. So this is a fun option. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think one of the conversations that we both mutually agreed on were some of the things in product marketing. And that's how the conversation started. And I got to know more about you as a product marketer and what you're trying to do. I'm really excited about the book that you're also working on. And we have a lot of things to discuss more on that in this episode. So maybe we can get started with the origin story. You are working on this book, but I want to go back into the mindset of that. So, can you share a little bit about your product marketing journey and, how these questions like so what, why, who cares, that kind of thing kind of came up into your life? Was there a particular moment or experience that actually inspired you to come up with that?
It was a specific moment. I do mention it as an anecdote in the book, but I'd been a product marketer for a few years before I joined JDA, which is now Blue Yonder, the largest supply chain company in the world. I was a product marketer for a manufacturing segment. And one of the challenges I was given, 2 or 3 months in, was to create a competitive killer kit for one of the competitors that was really doing a nice job of taking away some of our business. And so I spent a lot of time. It was a big visibility project, put together this, I thought, beautiful slide deck, put a lot of time into it. And so I was reviewing it with my VP of marketing, and I'm probably, 4 or 5 slides in. I'm enthusiastic, and he goes, "Doug, stop. So why are you doing this?" I'm like, well, I'm supposed to be trying to do, I explained, well, no, but why are you putting these things in those words, those messaging? I'm like, well, that's what, the research is showing, what blah. Sales doesn't care. And I'm staring at him like, okay. Yes, and if you think you're going to pass this off to sales and they're going to use it and like it and get value out of it, you're mistaken. He said, they're going to take this, look at that and say, marketing's not listening to us. They don't get it. They don't understand. You've got to completely redo this whole deck. Gee, Merry Christmas. So he said, take out a piece of paper and he said, write down on this post-it note, so what, why, and who cares? And I've got, you can't probably see it, but I still have the post-it note. I've carried it for a few years. And he said, I want you to take everything that you say on every single slide and run it through that as a filter. I went, okay. So we hung up, and I was, I've known this guy. I've worked with this guy twice since. He's a great guy, but he can be kind of like, in your face on things. So he was trying to make me better. So I really stepped back and used that framework and completely changed the messaging, the deck, how we went to market with that particular area. And it ended up actually being something that evolved into a corporate messaging change itself. My work got presented in front of main stage at a couple of different conferences by CEO and the CMO. So long story short, just that little phrase changed a good part of my trajectory in my career. So, but it was a bit harsh, No, you worked very well.
I love the story that you've shared. And I think feedback like that can make or break you. It can either push you towards the confidence that you really need to do the right work. And I think everybody has a mentor like that. I'm so glad that we are discussing everything around that because it inspired you. And now you're going to be inspiring product marketers like me and so many others who are listening to us today. And it is gonna make at least 2% things better in the product marketing world. So thank you for sharing
That's
that.
my goal. The reason I started writing the book was I was unemployed for a while. I was going through a lot of product marketing interviews, and the question kept coming up, what kind of messaging, how do you get to your messaging? What kind of framework do you use? And so I'd bring up the so what, why, and who cares framework as the primary thing I use. And then one day I'm like, I should write a book. I had free time. So I just started writing the book, and it started out slow in pieces. I have ideas and ideas, and I'm about 90%, maybe 95% done as of today. Hoping to send it off to the editor if all goes well by first of the week. But yeah, it wasn't. I mean, I'm obviously not looking to get rich. I would be love to have that happen. Um, but it's more to you know add some credibility to what it is that I do. I'd love to get some speaking engagements out of it. 'Cause I do a lot of speaking on product marketing and marketing, but it honestly, it was with that mindset of I've used this to help other product marketers. I've used this to help salespeople and pre-sales people, and people buy into it. They like it. I'm like, to your point, exactly. If somebody else can read this book and go, listen, use a framework and go, this helped me to improve how I
Right.
connect with sales, how I connect with our prospect audience, how I tell my story, our product story in a way that somebody goes, I want that. Or at
Exactly.
the very least, tell me more. We're just trying to get past that. Tell me more is the only way you get to buying something.
Exactly. And there could be people who want you to explain a bit more. And I think it's always a great conversation starter. And there's no less number of people that you get to know through any of the things that you're doing online. So I
Yeah.
think it's a good thing to do that. So moving on to a little bit of the alignment problem that I think we all as product marketers we all have faced while working with a lot of teams with a lot of different stakeholders. So but I think that alignment is something that few product marketers are only able to achieve it. So, from your perspective, what's the real root cause of misalignment inside organizations, and how can PMMs play a stronger role in fixing that?
Misunderstood or mismanaged expectations would be very, very high on the list. Lack of clarity of what a product marketer truly is supposed to do, what we have our hands into, the influence we can have, and collaboration would be high as well. So, all of those, it truly puts the pressure on the product marketer. We have to be the ones who are that central stirring pot, for lack of a better term, to make sure I'm talking to sales and product and pre-sales and all of it, and maybe ops and client communication people and event people to make sure we're bringing this all together to get and sorry, I completely forgot, and clients and prospects. So being out there and listening to what's happening in the world, we have to be the ones that really pull all that together. And that's why I think product marketing is such a unique part of marketing. We're not marketers by the strict sense. We're not product by the strict sense. We're in that bridge between. And we have to be able to pull all that information together, share that to create that alignment, to enforce that collaboration and to drive clearer expectations. Otherwise, we're just kind of seen as the pretty slide people, which yeah, we can do pretty slides, but that's not all. There's so much more that goes into product marketing, analyst relations, PR, sales kits, competitive information, win loss, blah 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 blah. There's a ton of stuff we can and should do, but again, alignment, clarity on what it is we're trying to create and solve for, and just collaboration.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you mentioned that we do not do only pretty decks, but there's so many other things that we do, which is kind of true. But I think when we are in the war zone, when we are actually juggling so many things, I think that becomes also a major part of what we do and what we get, accustomed to. And then the value is defined by how good the deck is ultimately. So I think even whenever I'm having conversations with other product marketers and whenever I join any communities and talk to people, share my experiences, it always comes down to the value that you are able to show and put on the table. Like it's table stakes, right? And if it comes down to you creating a deck or a blog, I think it is also important to put the value that it's going to generate for the product that you're marketing. So I think it's super important, and it's never less when it's not enough to talk about. It's the conversation has to be ongoing for these kind of topics. And I am done hearing the stereotypes around product marketing, but then you have to still talk about it and break them all the time.
You do. And to your point on creating the pretty presentation, I understand it because creating a presentation and putting it out there to a sales team to use is a very visual, concrete, hey, we just did something. Here's something you can go take and
Right.
hopefully drive sales engagements and activity or supporting a webinar. It's concrete. So I understand why we're often looked at as, hey, can you help me make a slide deck? And we should be. We should be helping to
Yeah.
support that. Yeah, I think we may have talked this, using AI as an example to do that. It's gotten so much more powerful and easy, but people drive the messaging. Product marketers drive the messaging. AI can't help create messaging, but they can't create human-centric, people-focused, outcome-focused, relevant messaging the same way that we do. So whether it's a pretty presentation or an ugly one, if you got the right message and the right impact in there, but that's all. I get it. Okay. Whether it's a collateral or a deck, we're like project managers a lot of days. If we don't do our job, things fall apart. But sometimes, at the end of the day, what did you actually do? I did a lot. Show me.
Exactly. Being a good project manager is one of the top skills you have to have as a product marketer
Yeah.
because it makes your job so much easier and for you to actually present the kind of value and output you're going to bring in the team. I do have a follow up on the question that I asked you previously. So, how can a PMM move from being the messaging person to the clarity builder across teams?
That's an excellent question. I think, when you've been doing this for as long as I have, sometimes you have to step back and remind yourself of that question. So when I or you, whoever's creating messaging, and that's why again I use the framework that I'm in the book, the so what, why, who cares. I create something and it sounds good to Doug, and I read it. And I'm like, okay, cool, that makes sense. I've got to go through that framework because that framework makes me think about not how Doug wants to say it, how Doug wants to hear it. It's how my audience is going to use it, respond to it, and emotionally engage with it. That's where you start to create that clarity. But then before you get to that part, you're working with people who are going to be part of that process, going to your sales team and saying, here's how I want to talk about fill in the blank product. Here's a value proposition. Here's a elevator speech. Here's a 30-second clip. Here's an email message script that you could use. What do you think? Because you are talking to the clients or prospects on a regular basis. That's where some of that clarity comes in. Now, sometimes sales is going to say, "Oh, you're completely wrong." And I'll be honest, sometimes sales is wrong. If the salespeople watching, sometimes it's true. But the best way to get to that clarity is to form those relationships with sales to say, "Hey, I want to be part of how you are successful. I want you to be more effective and more efficient. How can I help take some of that clarity or the messaging creation off of you and then get that feedback?" Pre-sales is also extremely valuable because they usually talk to a lot of and they have a lot of existing implementation knowledge. Here's what we did, here's how it worked, and here's how they responded, and feed that back in. So now you're not just creating messaging, you're creating messaging that is clear, to your point, clarity, has impact. And again, I always say, if we get people's heads to nod, we're getting progress. If they're looking
Right.
at you and they're going, no.
You have the clue. Right. So I have a really important question regarding the so what framework. And, I have a scenario around it. So, say you're launching a new product. How can PMMs use that so what, why, and who cares lens to actually shape the narrative so that the internal teams can buy in and ultimately it resonates with the customers? Do you have a lens that the product marketers listening to this podcast can use to actually make that change?
Awesome question. So we're doing a product launch, and to me, that's one of the biggest things that product marketers can and should have an impact on. And this is one of the things I'm starting to put in place where I am now at Digital Science is I'm putting into place a 90-60-30 for a launch and a 30-60-90 for a launch. Before we launch and after we launch, what are we going to do? How is that going to impact our audience? And our audience is not just the prospects, our audience is also the sales teams, it's the customer engagement teams, it's the product teams. So we provide that feedback. Obviously, it's the marketing teams. And so using the so what, why, who cares, not just on messaging. So not just to the sentences we write, but why are we launching this particular product or this particular enhancement on this date? Is there a particular read? So who cares? If we don't launch it on Tuesday, who cares? Doesn't make an impact. Oh, there's an event that's coming up that's huge that this people use this solution a lot. Boom. That's who cares. So now I'm putting that lens on to say, whatever we do as we take things through a product launch, what is the impact we are looking for? So setting goals, ideally putting that out there. What are we trying to accomplish with this? And then how we take all that process. Why is this particular feature, this particular product launch going to make a difference in that client's or prospect's life? And the other part of the so what, and this is something that having dealt a lot with product launch and release challenges and this is why I'm doing the 30-60-90 launch part. Once we launch, if you aren't ready to buy yet, even if it's the most amazing messaging in the world, best images, and it's cool, I'm just not ready to buy for the next 9 months. Okay. If we don't put messaging out there and keep that so what mindset going, then in 9 months when I am ready to buy, if we've stopped talking about what it is we do, or at least trickling it out there, we miss an opportunity. We all get in product marketing and product management and sales, we all get that mindset. We've launched, hey, it's cool. They should buy it today.
That's not how it
I just
works.
I just bought a new car about 4 or 5
Yeah.
months ago. So hammering me with a car ad, yeah, I want to buy another car in a few years maybe, but not
Not
now.
right now. Yeah.
Lens I put on again, it's not just I focus on messaging and positioning because that's what I've been doing, but it's the bigger picture of how we go to market with that lens in place, that everything we're doing, are we doing a webinar? Okay, cool. If we're doing a webinar, how are we setting that up? How are we priming the audience before the webinar even gets put out there? How are we priming the audience? We do the webinar when it happens. We should be priming the audience when they come on. Say, here's 3 things you're going to learn. Here's 3 things you're going to take away at the end. Putting that whole who cares attitude to the whole thing. That's just could probably take a longer conversation on product launch. I put a lot of effort into it.
Like the launch that you have explained, with that into picture, you put every action and strategy that you're planning for the launch and the launch day. It's like all the T minus launch days are planned, and you put every action accountable through the lens to why does it matter to the customer and the potential buyer. So I think that's a really interesting take on how we can view product launches, because ultimately it all comes down to, it becomes a very overwhelming process when you're like preparing for a launch. And if you have that lens into picture, you can actually, just discard anything that doesn't make sense. That's a really interesting lens, and I hope people listening do take some notes, because that's a very important take on how we approach product launches. And things need to, like, these conversations need to keep happening, because we as product marketers, we need to make our jobs easier, but also put a lot of value to the things that like directly hit our KPIs. And I think it's super important, and your frameworks that you are talking in such a manner that I think it's going to help a lot of people listening. So yeah, thank you for
I hope so.
sharing that. Yeah.
2 things I want to, and follow one of the things you said, I want to point out is you mentioned at one point discarding things. And that's important because yeah, we've all been there, we've gone through, and this is how we've done it before. And sometimes that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. If it's working, don't mess it up. But sometimes you go through this process and you say, why do we have this step or this requirement or this collateral or whatever it's going to be? Do we really need to do that? And maybe for the big launch, yes. For a small launch, no. Maybe to your point, if you discard things that just don't have any real impact on anything else, makes us happy, but again, I'm not buying my product. And then, I'm a big one on analogies, and so maybe it's a dumb one, but what really struck me was I was thinking about launch, and I was thinking about NASA, and they launch a rocket up there. Once the rocket takes off the launch pad, does everybody walk out of the building and go home and never talk to the astronauts again, or check on the rocket, or follow up, or like? But and I'm not saying just what we do. A lot of companies do that. I mean, we launch it, and there's very little post-launch activity. Yeah.
And just imagine if there are so many less posts after the launch. Imagine what's happening inside the teams. Like, is there anybody looking at the analytics? Is there anybody having that strategy post the launch about the things that are working and things that are not working? So I think launch is not the final outcome. I think it's just beyond that. You have to have a more strategic vision post the launch as well on how you're gonna fix things, whatever keeps coming. So I think
Mhm.
that's a really important point that you have added here about the launches.
Launch does not mean we are done.
Exactly. I think that half of the work of a product marketer starts from the day the product gets launched. And there are so many things that you have to cater to in terms of not just data, but what's working and what's not working. Like after 10 days of the launch, how's the campaign performing? If there's a campaign that's happening, and are you working on the data? Are you fixing anything that needs to be fixed after that launch? I think it's super important, and not many people talk about it. It's always the success stories of launches, but I think we need to talk about what doesn't get to the table and what doesn't make it to the expectations after the launch. I do want to focus a little bit more into your experiences. So you've worked across multiple industries and teams. What's one story that best captures how these principles created a real shift in outcomes or the culture? Like you mentioned what was the origin of this framework, but like how has it influenced your day to day?
Trying to find one example out of many. I'll actually go back to so I was the chief marketing officer of a technology company for a couple of years. And so I was also a product marketer because there wasn't a true product marketer on for a while. I was also the analyst relations guy and the CMO. But because of the way I try to simplify how I think We were selling a very technical solution. It was very engineering focused, but we also needed to speak to the business owners. So for me, it was important to how do I break this down into ways, phrasing, imagery, messaging that's going to make a business person go, oh, okay, that's interesting. And it was a bit of a risk, but I used the concept of Lego bricks to help tell the story of our technology. Again, nothing groundbreaking. So I'm not the first marketer to talk about Lego, but well, first of all, I brought it to the CEO, who was he basically the guy who wrote the program. I wasn't sure where it would go. It was well received. Long story short, used the concept to help tell the story at a couple of key conferences. And like I said, going back to that head nodding thing, and the first time I'm like, well, how's this going to go? When you're watching this audience and they feel like buying into it, they're taking pictures of your Lego slides with words on there, explain what you like, okay, this is kind of fun. And so to me, it was the reason I bring it up, it was a risk. I took a risk of oversimplifying an important technology. But the mindset I have, and going back to so what, why, who cares, is I use it also for my messaging up the ladder. And I talk about that in the book because I think we have to be courageous enough to say, I'm going to oversimplify the crap out of this and make it really not basic. Basic is the wrong word. Get out of our way, get out of our mindset, simplify it, look at it, and then go, now we're really simplified. Then you do that collaboration we talked about. Then you do that whole alignment. Okay, here's the really simple version. Sales, what do you think? Oh, you need to have this in there. Okay, well, we do a little more. Pre-sales, what do you think? Oh, but you start with the super simple as opposed to the paragraph. Well, now we have two paragraphs. Now we have three paragraphs. And if I'm the prospect reading that, I'm like, you lost me. So that's one of the examples that comes to mind. Yeah, I'll use that one.
Yeah, I'm sure there are plenty. Right now, like I'm really focused around, like I see so many LinkedIn posts around this specific problem that I think so many product marketers, even in the communities that I've joined, have mentioned that they fear that they're not adding any value as a product marketer in the current role that they're in, or in just in their consulting role. So they're not adding any value. So my next question is around that, and like what's your take on how can PMMs communicate that impact that they're creating from the work that they're doing, instead of just focusing on, hey, I just made a deck, which is tangible to see, but then there are other things, the influence that you create within the teams. How can you, like, we cannot showcase the support that we have shown to the sales team, right? It's not tangible, but like how do you communicate that? And I'm sure there are many PMMs dealing with that.
Yeah, I hate this question, but it's a good one. And no, great. Metrics for product marketers are very challenging because going back to that project management, comparison, a lot of times we're just, I'm oversimplifying like I do. We're just moving a bunch of boxes around and making decisions. We're contributing here. We're doing this. We're doing a lot of little things sometimes. Sometimes it's that one big presentation, but it's very hard to say that one big presentation led to $1 million sale. It's difficult. But that's where I think it becomes very important to get aligned with your demand generation teams and your sales teams, and those that are more, I'm going to call it closer to the front line of creating demand opportunities and seeing what they're being measured on and connecting that back to what it is that we produce. If we've been doing messaging outbound scripts on X, Y, and Z trying to sell something, and we can help to improve or provide A, B scripts for them to use, and we see this one gets a higher hit rate, this one gets a lower hit rate, we can list that as a positive contribution we're making. If we were to redesign a website and use heat maps to say where people are doing this more and more, and now we've got a longer dwell time, reduced bounce rates, higher click-through to conversion rates. Those are things we can directly influence using messaging and positioning and creative conversations. And you have to have alignment with your teams to say, are these kinds of conversions going to be important to you? I mean, just if you can increase a click-through to request a demo percentage by 20% in 3 months, that's got to be a positive thing. And it's not because you wrote, click here for a demo. It's created a flow, whether you used examples of the solution there, maybe you go, okay, cool. And you drove that. Those are some of the metrics that I've looked at. Analyst relations is another great example. Increased mentions by of your company by an analyst, or showing up in a Magic Quadrant or the Wave. All those are, we were here before, now we're here. LinkedIn followers, engagement, all those things. But yeah, metrics for us PMMs is tough. It's hard to concretely prove sometimes what we did to move the needle from here to here. There's no great answer that's going to change anybody's world other than stepping back and realizing where you can and you do have impact, and then challenge. And again, this is where I struggled for quite a while. Is, again, my boss going, so what do I? Yeah, I created this fantastic messaging structure. Okay, cool. Then who's going to use it? How are they going to use it? How do you know it was successful? And that really forced me to start thinking about the web of things that my work was touching and hopefully influencing and creating changes from.
I love that you mentioned, because it's always a gray area when it comes to the metrics that we achieve as a product marketer. Sometimes it moves forward, sometimes it doesn't move the needle. So it's accepted, right? But when it comes down to what impact you have created, I think what has worked out for me in my past role is having that eye for the storytelling and the data that you are working with. It could be anything. It could be positive, or it could be some insight that you have seen. So I think what has worked really well for me in terms of delivering some KPI, it's if I can tell a story through that data. It could be working for us, or it could be an insight or a learning that we need to like fix something. It kind of makes whole lot of difference when you're dealing with these conversations, that you have to actually prove your worth through some numbers. So I think that's some point that I wanted to add here, because it has personally worked for me, and it shows like I have moved some needle at least somewhere in the future. So
And that's great. That is a strength that is so important. I've gotten better just in the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years at looking at data and going, and starting to make those connections. That has never been my strong point. But now that I'm starting to see that a bit more, I've learned from people like yourself, other people who, like, here's how they're telling and just validating their story, they're validating their successes. I'm like, oh, okay, I see how they broke that down. I've gone to a couple of training things. Like, this will never be a core strength for me. Is
yeah.
data storytelling, but it's something I'm adding to. So if you got it, then good on you.
Absolutely. I keep sharing that with other PMMs, that what has worked. So I think people listening can actually mix both the things that we are talking about and like do well in their PMM career. Yeah.
The rising tide lifts all of our boats.
Exactly. Also, I want to focus a little bit about your writing journey, and like definitely a little bit focus on what your book is about. And I know writing a book is not a small feat. I have not been in that, but I always dreamt of having written a book, but at least being an author to one book that I ever write in my life. But like, how has it been for you? Is it like personally challenging, or what have you learned so far while writing a book, and what is keeping you going so far?
It was a piece of cake. No kidding. And technically, it'll be the second book or third book I've contributed to. I've done
Okay.
a couple of dummies books in a couple of previous lives, but this is my first one solely me. It was interesting. So I sat down and I basically forced myself to go through and ask myself the same questions. Okay, so you want to
Okay.
write a book. What do you write about? I put stuff down on paper. I'm like, so is anybody going to want to read this? And I had to get past that first big hurdle of the fear of sharing Doug's mindset and Doug's way of saying things. And I'm going to put this book out there, and maybe 5 people will go. My first review, I share the person I've known for a while. Her first review came back, and it was tough. I mean, she was brutal. At first, I'm like, I suck. Then I step back, same thing. Like, hey, what does this mean? How do I incorporate that? How do I change?
Yeah.
For me, the writing journey was really just taking a look at what it is I wanted to say, and I created a high-level outline. I did use Chat GPT to give me to help me generate some ideas. The book is, I'm going to say, if I'm 90% done writing the book, I'm going to say 85% of it is me. So I have used Gen AI. Well, we should. Why not?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it makes it
Of
better, but I
course.
use it more as a thought provoker partner. Here's what I'm trying to say. What do you think, and how would you? So, I didn't even think about this. Uh, It's the same way I was doing my resume and doing job hunting. I mean, like, how would you say it? I'm like, that sounds a lot better than how I say it. The hardest thing about writing the book for me has been trying to find that balance between repeating and emphasizing key points in different parts of the book and not being repetitive. But I still think that sometimes just reading something twice, three, as long as you don't say exactly the same, reinforcing the key points is important. But even and I've read my book too many times. I'm like, say this the same time. But that's where it is important is to get that repeatability and then continuing to run my filter against the book. So it's probably taken me, I'm going to say I'm going on 6 months of writing.
Wow.
Some days I would sit on the back patio and just go at it. And some days I'm literally looking at a chapter going, this needs something. I'd write, stop writing, I write. I built a lot of anecdotes into it because for me, personal experiences have been what have contributed so much to my journey as a product marketer. That person or that experience or this activity or this mistake I made, no, I screwed up. I didn't do this right. Little, if even just one person reads an anecdote and goes, I identify with that and I can see myself doing this differently or better or making the same mistake,
Yeah.
helping to drive that journey, that's gonna be fun. Sometimes there's some really good stuff there, some just me being squirrely and just writing my mindset out.
Yeah.
Hopefully people will forgive me for being a little quirky at times, but you know, I don't want to read it. I don't want people to be reading a textbook. I want them to be reading something that's going to inspire them, challenge them. And if they disagree with me, that's 100% fine. Here's how I would do it. Please tell me because, maybe I'll learn something.
I think as I mentioned, it's always a great conversation starter. It could be good or bad. At least it's something that you hear back from people. Any kind of feedback is always a great feedback.
Just don't tell me it's terrible. No, I'm just kidding.
Absolutely. I'm sure it's going to be really, really good and valuable for people that you have written it for.
I hope so.
So I do have a follow up on that. Like, has writing like this solely for your first book, has it changed the way you think or operate as a marketing leader?
I think it's reinforced my good habits when it comes to all the things I do for positioning and for messaging and for storytelling and teaching. And this is where what was really cool, just a quick example at my current position, I was talking with our sales leaders, explaining what it is I do, my background, the book, blah, blah, blah. And he invited me over the next week to London to come over and help run a workshop for his sales team on messaging and positioning and improving sales decks. And I had the attention of this sales team for 4.5 hours as I went through, described it, created conversation, put them on challenges, gave me some work to do. It was amazing. I mean, it was honestly, from emotional, good validation for what I was doing working, but it was also really cool to see them just digging into it. How about if you said it like this? And well, here's the so what? And that was awesome. So that was just a really good feeling to see that, come into fruition.
Right. If you kept sales folks for 4 hours and they were totally engaged, I think you did half of the hard work there. And I think people are going to love your book. So don't worry about that.
But it
Yeah.
was, I keep saying I hope so. I think it is going to be a good book. I truly do because I put my heart, and it sounds cheesy, but I put my heart into it because I truly believe in this. I mean, I've been using this framework for 14 years. I've interviewed a few people. Some people have former coworkers and colleagues. I've interviewed them for the book, so I'm doing a podcast with them. And one of the guys who worked for me is like, Doug, I love this framework. I've been using this for quite a while, and so people I know are excited about it. So again,
Absolutely.
so much of my style is to help other people grow in their professional and personal lives. If this helps impact somebody and get somebody to the next level in their product marketing job or gets that next accolade, when
It's a huge win. And moving on to the last question, but if somebody is listening who feels stuck in execution mode, like some of us do, and you have also been there, also writing for your book and in your product marketing experiences, what's one mindset or a question that gets you out of it and becomes more energetic and has a lot of strategic clarity after that? Like, what's one advice that you would give to those people?
step away and start over. Sometimes that helps. Sometimes we get so bogged down in I'm writing it this way, or I'm thinking like this, or I'm stuck with this project, and we are determined to I'm going to fix this right now. I think sometimes just stepping away, going for a walk, and just letting it run through your head. I mentioned in the book, oftentimes I'll read messaging out loud. Do that. Just whatever you wrote down, just say it out loud a couple of times, 2 or 3 times slowly. And then, does this sound good or stupid? So that's one way I've just gotten myself off the dime as I read things and go, no, that didn't sound like it. Reading stereo instructions.
Right.
You know, obviously I would use the framework because I'm biased about that, but just trying to imagine that you know nothing about what you're talking about right now. And you are now reading that as a brand new person, or you're trying this project as a brand new person, or what. Look at that with a fresh set of eyes and say, does this make any sense, or am I just making stuff up?
I think that should give you a lot of clarity. And I hope people listening to also get a lot of clarity from that. And from the past podcast episodes as well, I have always gotten some feedback or some follow up questions. So I do wish people to ask me or Doug a lot of questions, ask a lot of questions about his book and when it's coming. So, Doug, can you tell us when it's coming out? Is there any date to the book launch, or
I'm
we would
looking
love
for
some
hopefully,
insights?
I'm hoping to be mid-January. The editors, the publisher I've talked to is in, mid-January, early February is a good time for business books to come out. If all goes well, I'm sending out the editors shortly. My goal is mid-January, early February.
All
And if you
right.
go to sowhatwhywhocares.com, there's a little button you can click on. It'll say, if you click on this, you can keep updated for, updates on my book and timings and everything. I promise no spam. I'm not going to sell your list. It's just to keep you up to date on the things. But
Right.
that's my goal, is to get it out by then, see how it goes.
Sounds good. And I can vouch for that. I have not received any spam emails after signing up for the waitlist. So I'll just add the link in the description below, and everybody can add up and wait in the waitlist for the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. And if you
So,
want to
Doug,
connect me on LinkedIn, I'm happy to
yeah,
connect with, other product marketers
absolutely.
on LinkedIn. And this is, that's how I met you, Shruti. Yeah, this is the
Exactly.
kind of stuff we have to be here to help each other out. Well, this is not a hold on to my knowledge and not share it. I think that's one of the things the product marketing community is really good about, is sharing knowledge.
It is super true. The end goal is to just give back to the product marketing community, and I am all in for that. And like, it's such a supportive community. Anybody or everybody that you get to meet in this community, people are super helpful. They just talk to you, and like, if you're stuck, you get into the execution mode right after talking to some really great people. So, also, Doug, this was such a masterclass in clarity and purpose. I know you said that you don't want to be accustomed to that word, but I hope people got a lot of clarity. And thank you so much for walking us through the framework and through the insights of the book that you're writing and showing up how it applies to product marketers everywhere. I'm sure it's going to be super helpful. So, for everyone listening, if you're looking to bring more alignment, focus, and storytelling in your work, make sure to follow Doug and check out his upcoming book at the website that I'm going to put below. As always, thank you so much, Doug. And yes, it was such a great session. Yeah,
Thank you. I've enjoyed this. I love your energy. I love the questions, some excellent questions. So anybody watching this, great stuff for Shruti. If I can help you out, let me know. Happy to be here.
absolutely. I'll drop all the links in the description below. And if you have enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little clarity in the marketing journey. I'm your host, Shruti, and I'll see you in the next one where we go behind another brief to uncover the real stories shaping the marketing today.